Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review and rant on what I personally found to be a very disappointing horror film, and that is 2017's It. Now, I know a lot of people liked It. I have no issue with that. I think that's great. I personally, though, found it to be a disappointing misfire, and I'm going to explain why I feel that way throughout the course of this video. And if you can agree to disagree, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. That being said, let's get started. Now, 2017's It is a successful movie so far in terms of the box office. It's broken box office records, although to me that's not an indicator of a film's quality. Whether or not a film is good to you, it depends on your personal opinion. The box office has nothing to do with it. That being said, though, it has been doing well. It costs about $35 million and it has easily quadrupled the budget. It's directed by Andy Muschietti, who was the guy who replaced Cary Fukunaga as the director for the film. Cary still had his script used in this movie, at least elements of it, at least portions of it, but Muschietti was brought on board by the studio because they didn't like the direction that Fukunaga wanted to take the film. He wanted a more of a psychological horror aspect to it. He wanted to make it more of an old school horror film. They didn't really like that. They wanted it to be more of a jump scare 2017 movie. And that's sadly what this film ended up being. And that's one of the worst things about it, is that it isn't scary at all. The film went through the not very scary door that you see in the film, and it shows. It really does. This is not a scary film. This is not a movie that keeps you up at night. And the fact that there are a lot of horror films lately that just fail to scare you, that just seem to think that making you jump out of your seat equals being scared, is just boggling to me. It's mind-boggling. It seems like a lot of filmmakers and studios have completely forgotten what makes a horror film scary. What makes a horror film scary is stuff that keeps you up at night, that makes a chill run down your spine, stuff that sticks with you, not stuff that makes you just go, whoa! Or, I'm sorry. Horror, until studios and filmmakers and screenwriters understand what true horror is again, we're gonna continue to have this insidious, sinister type of horror film, because that's what's popular. Look how much money Ouija made, okay? And this is a hit. So all that we're gonna get is more shit in terms of the scares like you see in this movie. I mean, The Conjuring, that had its moments. The Conjuring Part 2 had its moments. And I'm not saying every scare in this sucked. There were a couple that I thought were all right. But I personally felt that the It miniseries kicked this movie's ass up and down the block. And that's my opinion. And I'm sticking to it. I really felt that way. I felt that anything that this film got right, the miniseries was at least on par with the things that this film got right, or was better. The miniseries gets shit on by too many people, in my opinion, and it's continuing to get shit on, and this film is considered to be way better than it by a lot of people, and that's fine, but I don't understand it. I really don't. I think the miniseries is a much stronger film, especially the first part, because that's what we're comparing the first part of the miniseries with this film. It's a much stronger film in terms of the characters, in terms of the writing for the characters, in terms of the camaraderie between the Losers Club, in terms of the climax, in terms of so many different other elements. Pennywise, Tim Curry, is miles better than Skarsgård. I don't understand the praise for Skarsgård. In my opinion, he is fucking sewer trash. He is absolutely abysmal in this. He took a page from Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, is trying way too hard to be intimidating and scary. and he falls flat on his ass. He's not funny. He doesn't have a sense of humor. His performance is shit. He honestly sounds like the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. He's not intimidating. He's not scary. I don't understand why people are praising this performance so much. If you love it, to each their own. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Going back to the director, Andy Muschietti. Even though he was the guy who was tasked to replace the original director, he's not a problem. I actually thought he did a good job. The direction in it was one of the best things about it. You can tell he has a passion for this film, for this story. The direction was, there's some really impressive shots. For instance, there's a shot where after Georgie's demise, you see a shot that's spinning around and doing a sort of a, not really a pan, but it's going through the tunnels to the aqueducts, and it does a really nice camera move, and it shows you the film's titles. That was really well done shot. There's a lot of shots like that in the film. Muschietti's direction is not a problem, not at all. I'm gonna say that his direction was actually quite good. I also thought the cinematography by Chung Hoon Chung was also very solid. Even though the film's color filter, where it sapped out all the color out of the film, didn't really do the cinematography any favors. Kind of made the film look kind of shitty because it's got all the color sucked out of it, so it's way too gray and way too dark, and it doesn't really add a lot of genuine mood or atmosphere to me. It just feels artificial. And I will say that there were a few other things about the film that I did like. The screenplay, though, I felt needed work. The first hour of the movie is just a bunch of jump scares with little to no character development, at least the bare minimum. It's just, that's not even the bare minimum. Well, I guess the bare minimum, but bare bones character development and jump scares, and none of them were any good. There were moments that it had potential, like there's a scene where I believe the character, Ben Hanscom, he goes and sees a headless soldier or something running after him in the library. That was pretty cool. And then Pennywise shows up and ruins it with a fucking stock jump scare. So there's no subtlety at all to this film in its scares, in its attempts to scare you. And that's a problem. Pennywise is the weakest part about the film. And when you have a movie that is centered around this villain, around this character, and it's so weak, and every scene that Pennywise is in doesn't fucking work, isn't scary, isn't fun, that really hurts the film immensely. And I know there's a lot of people who like Pennywise, who think Skarsgård is amazing, and to each their own. I thought he sucked dick. That's a big reason why the film sucked. It's a big reason why it sucked for me, is you have Pennywise. It sounds like he's a fucking Mad Hatter or Adam Sandler for Billy Madison, and he's not funny, he's not scary. The makeup design is far too try hard scary. There's no subtlety at all to this character or the scares. You see it right from the beginning with Georgie's death. I understand that it's more brutal and it's kind of shocking, but at the same time, it absolutely exemplifies how fucked up and how much this movie gets its scares wrong, because it's overkill. Too much. There's no subtlety. It's about as effective as a fucking Jack-in-the-Box. Georgie gets his arm ripped off, and it's a shitty CGI effect. And it reminded me of the scene in Jaws of Revenge when one of the Brody sons gets his arm bitten off. It's not a good thing when you're giving me flashbacks to Jaws 4. Jaws of Revenge. Is this as bad as Jaws of Revenge? No, it isn't. That's not saying a lot if you're better than Jaws the Revenge. But anyway, yeah, he gets his arm bitten off. Why did you have to go that far? Was that really necessary? The answer is no. And the answer is, well, we needed to make the film stand out, so let's throw as much gore as we possibly can. Oh, the kid gets his arm bitten off. And I want to give it credit for going there, but the execution sucked. Because the effect wasn't believable. It was fake as fuck looking. CGI, rain, arm getting bitten off. It was awful. It took me out of the film. And then this kind of shit continues throughout the movie. Pennywise shows up in a scene where he reveals himself in a series of slides, and then he pops out of the screen at the Losers Club, and it's a CGI effect that is astonishingly shitty. That is astonishingly bad. I mean, this is the type of CGI I'd seen in a film from 10 years ago. There were even scenes in the movie where you had CGI balloons! They could your budget is $35 million, not $35. You can afford some fucking balloons. Or maybe they were practical balloons, but because of this fucking color filtering and the other shit they added with CGI later, it just looked like it was CGI. Either way, there were some scenes where it clearly looked like they had CGI balloons. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? Come on now. You can't afford balloons? But yeah, the CGI was a problem throughout the whole movie. The climax, awful CGI. CGI blood pouring out of Pennywise that looked like the equivalent of the CGI Klingon blood in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. That was made in 1991. You have no excuse to have shitty CGI. CGI that's that fucking crappy in a 2017 movie. And don't give me the it cost $35 million as an excuse either. The miniseries didn't have that big of a budget, and it managed to make things work. And wow, it had practical effects, and they were better. Now, there were other elements. There were some practical effects in this. I gotta give credit to the leper thing that Eddie sees because he's a germaphobe. That was done practically, and that was well done. One of the bullies sees some practical sort of demon zombie-like kids or something. That was done practically. There were some moments with Pennywise that were done practically. But most of the time, it was just CGI that was just atrocious. It was awful. Awful CGI. The script by Chase Palmer, Cary Fukunaga, and Gary Dauberman, there really wasn't much of a flow to it. It just felt like it just was a series of barely connected together moments with the Losers Club, Pennywise, and the bullies, and that's really about it. I didn't really buy that the Losers Club really bonded that much. There was one scene where they jumped off a cliff into the water, and there was something there, but there wasn't a lot of that. The film didn't stop enough to let its characters grow and breathe. It just kept shoving one shitty jump scare after another at you. So, I mean, that was a big problem for me. Also, I felt that the script really didn't do the best job establishing that this is an 80s movie. It's supposed to take place in the late 80s. It doesn't really look or feel like it. It's a fake, faux 80s style film. It's like the filmmakers and the screenwriters just thought, hey, we can just throw a marquee of Batman and Lethal Weapon 2 in the background. We can throw a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5 poster somewhere. We can throw in a Beetlejuice poster, a few other things, and call it a day. Or we'll have some of the clothes look kind of 80s. Like we'll have Eddie's mom dressed up like she's in 80s clothes that look like they're not even from 1988. They look like, or 89. They look like clothes from circa 1985. And we'll have one of the bully, the girl bully who bullies Beverly. We'll have her wear something that you'd see in an '80s throwback dance party in 2017. There was no effort put into the aesthetic of the '80s at all, versus the miniseries, which actually tried and did a great job showing you that this was a film this was a story that was taking place in the 50s. It actually had a 50s aesthetic, and it was believable. There was nothing like that in this. It didn't look or feel like an 80s film at all to me. Didn't help either. It didn't have a synth score or anything. It had this score by Benjamin Wallfish that was about as engaging as watching wallpaper dry or listening to it dry. It was just a very below average score. It sounded like something I would hear in Spider-Man by Danny Elfman. It just didn't really add that much to the movie to me. I appreciate that it tried to be an old school type score with old, instruments and wind instruments and stuff like that, but it just didn't really click for me. And the cast, I will say this. Two particular cast members were really good in this. I thought Jaeden Lieberher as Bill was really great. I thought he was perfectly cast. I thought he did a great job. And I thought Sophia Lillis as Beverly was phenomenal. I thought her performance was really, really good. It was amazing. I liked her character. I wish the movie was about Beverly. She was the best character in the movie. The other kids, they did fine. Jeremy Ray Taylor was fine as Ben. Finn Wolfhard had some fun lines of dialogue, but most of the time, though, his dialogue was terrible, and that goes to the script. He's just saying all these innuendos and all these jokes that aren't funny. So, in a very short amount of time, he just got on my nerves. I thought he was annoying. He was annoying as fuck most of the time. There were moments, though, where he had a fun line that made me chuckle, a nice one-liner, but that was 2% of the time. Most of the time, it was just one bad joke after another. Finn is much better in Stranger Things. He also feels a little bit out of place in terms of his casting here. This is not really the right character for him. I didn't really buy him in the role that much. And that might be because I'm so used to him playing a completely different type of character in Stranger Things. Wyatt Oleff, who played Stan, he was there. He was fine. He did, he was all right. Chosen Jacobs as Mike. Chosen Jacobs did okay with what little he had to work with. Mike is almost useless in this. Well, in a lot of ways, he kind of is. You could cut him out of the film, and the film wouldn't miss a beat. And that's a problem when one of the Losers Club members is such an afterthought like Mike is. In the miniseries, he had a voice. He was narrating it. He was the guy who knew a lot about the history of Derry. In this, Ben takes that role. So then Mike really doesn't have that much to do except be muscle. And that's really all he is in this movie. So very disappointing to see Mike Hanlon's character be treated as an afterthought. I thought Jack Dylan Grazer was good as Eddie. He played the role well. Jackson Robert Scott was really good as Georgie. I would have to say, though, I personally felt the guy who played the bully, I'm looking through it here. Sorry, I'm checking it out here. Henry Bowers. I thought that guy, the actor who played Henry Bowers, Nicholas Hamilton, I thought he was miscast, and I thought his acting was awful. I thought he sucked. So I didn't really think he was that good. I didn't buy him in the role as this leader of this group of bullies. He wasn't believable, and I thought his acting wasn't very good either, so that didn't help. Now, that's the cast. And before I go into some other stuff, I want to explain a little bit more why I really liked Beverly. I not only thought that Sophia Lillis was attractive, but I also felt that she really had nailed it in terms of the personality of the character. She was this outsider, but she had a warm heart to her, and that really did show in the film. You sympathize with her the most, and at least I did, even in the miniseries. In a lot of ways, her father is the scariest character in the film. Screw Pennywise, her father is terrifying, because that's real horror. The father who abuses their daughter and treats her like shit and sexually assaults her. That's real horror. So I give the film credit for how it dealt with those scenes, and any scene with Beverly, because she was a real bright spot when it comes to this movie. The editing by Jason Valentine, it was there. It was fine. I didn't have any problems with the editing. I felt the pacing was too slow, though. The movie's over 2 hours, and it just drags, because the first hour just gives you this smorgasbord of jump scares, just way too many jump scares, like it's a fucking piñata or something. Somebody hit a jump scare piñata, and all these scares are falling out, and it ran out of steam really early, and it takes a while to get going. Too long, if you ask me. I felt the miniseries had better pacing the first part, because even when you had scenes with character development, they were better because they were better written. The screenplay was better. But once you get to the climax, the climax is weak. You have this terrible CGI. You have Pennywise dancing like a fucking goofball, looking like something straight out of an Alice in Wonderland sequel. It reminded me of the dumb dance that Johnny Depp did in those Alice in Wonderland movies. What, the Futterwhacking or whatever? He's going around doing a stupid dance. And I mean, it's bad enough that Skarsgård's Pennywise is a fucking joke. Then you have this stupid dance at the end. And then you have the fucking... And then it just these terrible scenes with Pennywise. Like the scene that was in the trailer with Georgie. It's just as tone deaf and just as bad in the movie as it is in the trailer. And so much overkill. You'll all float down here. 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 There's no subtlety. He's yelling, you all float down here repeatedly. His face is turning into like a zombie. And then Pennywise is like puppeting him or something in the water. And then it just... Yeah. There's something else that floats. And it's shit. That floats too. For the most part, it is shit. Especially Skarsgård. But I'm trying to think of other things that I liked about it, so I'm not just 100% negative on this. Like I said, it's a review and a rant, so there's a lot of ranting in it. I also liked the way that the film showed people floating at the end in the sewer. I thought that was actually pretty darkly beautiful. That was actually really well done. It's really well handled. But like I said, the climax sucks because you have bad CGI, and then you have the kids don't really face their fears, at least not as well as it was established in the book or in the miniseries, from what I've heard anyway from the book. I've never read the book, so I can't say whether or not it's a good adaptation of the book or not. I'm just judging it on its own merits as a film. And yeah, they say some one-liners and beat up on Pennywise. It's not much of anything to me personally. So, and I can only, I don't know. I mean, there's going to be a second one for sure, and we'll see. I mean, the second part of the miniseries I actually liked more than the first one. I thought it was more interesting. So maybe the second part will be better, but I don't really have high hopes for it, especially if they bring back the same writing team. But that was a very lackluster, lame, forgettable remake that was generic, It reminded me of a million other fucking shitty horror films that have come out in the past 5 years with the same aesthetic, the same lame jump scares. Very disappointing. Waste of a capable cast for the most part, except for some exceptions. And I don't understand why this is considered to be one of the best Stephen King films ever. I don't get it. But I'm the guy who likes Graveyard Shift. I'm the guy who loves Maximum Overdrive. I'm the guy who roots for the underdog. So maybe that's why. I don't know. But I don't really know what else to say about it. I pretty much talked your ear off about it, and I'm running out of steam. I don't think it's one of the worst films I've ever seen. I don't think it's the worst film of the year. I don't think it's one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen in my life. But I can't lie and say it didn't disappoint me. It reminded me, the feeling I had with this after it was over was very similar to the feeling I had when I saw the last best horror film in years in Don't Breathe, which I also thought was below average and disappointing. It had its moments, just like this film did, but there were too many moments where it didn't work that brought it down. So ultimately, I felt that it was a loser. I'd give it a big fat L. You lost. You gave it an effort. You tried, but you still lost the game. You still lost, and it's just. I wanted so much more from this, and I just didn't get it. And I know a lot of people did, and I just didn't get it from this movie. But it's not like I didn't like films that were critically acclaimed in the horror genre this year. I loved Get Out. I thought that was an amazing movie. I thought that was a absolutely stellar movie. And that was a critically acclaimed horror film. I went into that with super low expectations, and it blew me away. So I went into this with the same expectations, and it just disappointed me. And that's just my personal opinion on it. That's just my thoughts on it. Take what you will, agree to disagree, and I would say check it out if you are really curious about it. If it looks good to you, you want to see whether or not it's as good as the reputation, as its recent reputation suggests. You want to see if it's worth the hype, then give it a watch. Check it out for yourself. Because who knows? You might end up liking it a lot more than me, and that'd be that's good. I encourage people to see films that they're curious about, regardless of what someone else might think about it. Regardless of whether or not I think it's a bad movie, I still think that you should go check it out if you want to see it. Don't let my negative review deter you from checking out the film if you legitimately want to see it. But if you had your doubts, I'd say go into it with the caution. I would say approach it with extreme caution. Because there's a possibility this could be a letdown for you, like it was for me. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about the film, except thank you for watching my review and my rant. And as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.